It's getting spicy out here. What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Curry, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish. I was in the process of trying to get the sneaker that I want to talk to you guys about today, but unfortunately, StockX actually took down the entire sneaker and took it out of their database, so I wasn't even able to get the sneaker. However, that doesn't mean that we cannot still talk about it. So let's talk about what's going on. So today is July the 2nd, which means that July 4th is right around the corner. And in typical fashion, Nike released a 4th of July Independence Day pack. They do it every year with different sneakers that highlight the patriotism and the unity of this country as a whole. Unfortunately, this year they made a huge misstep and possibly created the most controversial sneaker that they've ever made. The Air Max 1 was released with an interesting old American flag graphic on the back of the shoe. Now, for those of you guys that weren't familiar with what the flag actually is, it's actually what's known as the Betsy Ross flag. We'll get into Betsy Ross in a minute and her story, but for now, let's just stay on the sneakers themselves. The sneakers, unlike the typical 50 stars United States flag that waves high today, this flag actually featured 13 stars in a circle. Those 13 stars representing the original 13 colonies of the United States. Now, for some people that don't really know their history, it seems innocent enough. But for those of us who are a little bit more read into the history of the country, as well as the history for myself as a black man, the flag seems a little bit offensive. And it seems like a lot of people, particularly right-winged people, have actually taken a lot of offense to the fact that Nike decided to cancel the sneaker. But you really got to look at why Nike decided to cancel the sneaker. First things first was Colin Kaepernick. Now, as we all know, Nike has taken a stand with Colin Kaepernick in the past as he was fighting the NFL in his collusion case, using hashtags like I'm with Cap and releasing his own apparel line in support of his cause and his solidarity as he continued to take a knee and ultimately find himself ostracized from the NFL in protest of police brutality. Now, here's the situation. Just like Kaepernick was not actually opposing the flag, as it were, and people really misunderstood what his protest was all about, people yet again have misinterpreted what the situation is now and why he's opposing the sneaker and ultimately got Nike to shut down production. So let me break it down and make it as simple as I possibly can for you. Have you ever heard of a trigger word or a trigger action or something that when you see it or you hear it actually brings about a set of emotions and feelings inside of you that you almost can't even control, but it takes you to an emotional and mental space that you would rather not be in, but you just can't help it because something triggered you to get there? Well, for black folks, that's the Betsy Ross flag. You see, during the time of the 13 colonies back in the 1770s, when this great nation's Declaration of Independence was being formed and signed, the people that signed it, lest we forget, were slave owners. Thomas Jefferson, slave owner. George Washington, slave owner. And even though I know all through school the history books are supposed to teach us that we're supposed to hold these gentlemen in high regard, we have a tough time doing it because, again, slave owners. Now, Betsy Ross herself, we don't have a problem with Betsy Ross herself. Betsy Ross was no more than a flag maker, a seamstress, a sewing type of person. We don't have a beef with Betsy Ross herself. Matter of fact, it's debated whether or not Betsy Ross even created and sewed the first American flag with the 13 stars on it. Now, we know that she made subsequent flags after that, but it's actually been debated and the history is very murky whether or not she actually was the one that created the flag in the first place. But that's irrelevant. We only put Betsy Ross's name on it because she's the person most famously attached to creating and sewing the flag in the first place. But the flag is about more than that. The flag represents a deep, dark time in the history of African Americans, Native Americans, and other minorities in this country when we weren't even seen as people. You guys got to remember, when the Declaration of Independence was drafted, black people weren't the people that were talked about being protected in the Declaration of Independence. At that point, we were seen as 3/5 of a person, not even a full person. And the flag represents a time in history where slavery was rampant throughout the country, and there was nothing wrong with it. You see, that's what triggers people when they look at that flag. It takes them back to a time in history that we rather not think about. And for a huge company like Nike to just come off of Pride Month, a month that celebrates diversity and inclusion, to turn right back around and really during Pride Month, manufacture a sneaker that has a flag on the back of it that really is a glowing representation of slavery in this country, to me doesn't really make any sense. My question for Nike is, who in the world approved this flag flag to be created in the first place? I mean, I'm sure there has to be a channel and a chain of people that approve designs before they actually go into production. So did everybody at Nike think that this was a good idea? In any event, as a result of the mixed emotions around social media and for Colin Kaepernick taking yet again another stand against the flag, Nike decided to pull the shoe. Now, as we all know, controversy sells like nothing else. So the sneaker actually seemed to be released by a few outlets here and there before Nike actually made the formal announcement to pull all the stock and for all the retailers that got the shoe to send them back to Nike. As a result, StockX boomed in the value of that sneaker. And I mean, literally, I was looking at prices on the shoe around June the 30th, and they were around $250 to $300. And in 2 days' time, since Nike made the formal announcement that they were pulling the sneaker, prices shot up to $2,000 or $2,500 and up for the sneaker. It was pretty ridiculous, but as I mentioned earlier, StockX actually took the sneaker completely out of its database and shut the whole thing down. If you want my personal opinion, I think that Nike had a word with StockX and directed them not to sell the sneaker, and probably threatened a little bit of legal action if any transactions for the sneaker went through, because honestly, that's a lot of money for StockX to be losing out on in transaction fees to cancel that shoe. Now, a lot of you guys think that the flag is innocent enough, but for those of you guys who may not know, let me just educate you real quick that the flag actually has as controversial of a past as the Confederate flag. Now, the Confederate flag is one that we always seem to link with white supremacy and things of that nature, a lot of racism, especially in the South, because again, it does represent the Confederacy of the South, of the states that seceded during the Civil War. And as a resident of Alabama, I can honestly tell you, I see Confederate flags probably 4 or 5 times flying from people's homes in their cars every single week running around town. Now, some people say that the Confederate flag is still being waved and represented today because of historical purposes and it doesn't have anything to do with racism. I think the jury is still out on that one, but it is what it is. But did you know that the Betsy Ross flag was actually used interchangeably or in addition to the Confederate flag with certain white supremacist and white nationalist groups like the Ku Klux Klan? As a matter of fact, there was a study done in 2013 that actually required members of the KKK to carry the Betsy Ross flag as a part of their ritualistic meetings. Not only that, but there was quite a stir between the NAACP and a high school in Michigan back in 2016 when the flag was waved by a group of young Caucasian men during a football game that caused a lot of controversy, and the school superintendent ultimately had to issue an apology for the flag being used. Not only that, but even as late as 2018, the flag was still being used by those same type of nationalist and supremacist groups, and they were passing it out along with Confederate flags, candy, things of that nature to recruit people to join their club. I say all that to say that the Betsy Ross flag does have a very controversial history, and one that is linked directly to the Confederacy and the Confederate flag in the United States as well. All in all, I'm all for the unification of people in this country, no matter your race, creed, color, or nationality, or even your belief. However, I do think that it was a good move on Nike's part to go ahead and cancel this sneaker and burn all the inventory or whatever they're going to do with it, because this was just a really, really bad misstep. In any event, I hope this sheds a little bit more light about why people that look like me or look similar to me had a problem with the Betsy Ross flag being on the back of the Air Max 1. Now that I've said all that, it's time for you guys to sound off down in the comments and let me know what you guys think about the Air Max 1 Betsy Ross flag. Do you guys think that this sneaker should have gone ahead and come out in stores and people make their own decision whether or not they want to buy them? Or do you think that it was a good move on Nike's part to go ahead and cancel the sneaker altogether? Of course, while you're down in the comments, make sure that you click on that subscribe button. We would love to welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes out on this channel, because I guarantee you I got a lot of heat that's on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish, talking to me a little bit about the Betsy Ross flag Air Max 1. Happy Juneteenth, and until next time, I'm out.